If you're someone who is an adult art beginner, someone who has picked up art after many years away, but is feeling perhaps that you're just not really getting anywhere with it and you're not improving at the speed that you'd want to, and perhaps even thinking about giving it up altogether. In this video, I hope to change your mind by literally changing your mind. We need to talk about the things that are in our minds that are getting in the way of our progress. If you can change your mind first, the rest, including the art skills, will follow. So let's start off with a little thought experiment. We're going to step away from the world of art now just for a moment, and we're going to think about someone learning the violin. This is Ben. Ben started the violin when he was 10 years old. He's going to his lessons, he's starting to learn, he's really enjoying it, he's picked up something new, something to do after school, you know. Now, imagine that one of Ben's friends says to him, "You play the violin's for losers." You can imagine a kid saying something like that. Now imagine at this point that the universe splits into two, and we end up with two versions of Ben. We have Ben 1 and Ben 2. Now, Ben 1 is the version of Ben that just disregards what his friend says. "Oh, that's a load of rubbish. Violin's not for losers." And he carries on. He keeps on going. He gradually works his way up through his grades. He does it in his spare time around his exams. And he keeps on going. Ben 2 listens to his friend and says, you're right, I'm not going to play the violin anymore. And the violin goes back in its box and into his parents' loft. We're going to get back to art in a moment, so bear with me on this, but let's fast forward 30 years. Ben is now 40, and we've got two versions of adult Ben. Let's say Ben has the same job, he works in a shoe shop or something, and Ben 1, he plays the violin after he finishes his work managing the shoe shop. He goes and plays in a community orchestra on every Tuesday, and maybe on Wednesdays he goes and teaches little Jim down the street how to play the violin. He's a confident player, he's kept it going as a hobby, and he's just living his life with his shoe shop and his violin. But what about Ben 2? Ben 2 comes back from his shoe shop job and he goes home and he thinks, "Man, I wish I hadn't stopped playing the violin." He goes into the loft and he gets out his tiny, tiny little violin and he thinks, "I'm going to take this back up again." And he's really, really bad at it, right? And so he plays his little tiny violin. He can't hold pitch. He can't make a proper sound. He can't make it sound any good at all. He maybe just takes a few YouTube tutorials because he doesn't want to shell out for lessons. He's an adult, he doesn't have time for all of that. Now, Ben's neighbours hear Ben playing the violin and they come out and say, "I heard all of that noise over there last night. Who died?" Okay. Now, Ben has two choices. You see where this is going? Ben could either ignore this person and carry on playing his violin and hopefully get hold of some decent lessons from a teacher and actually get better at playing the violin. Or that tiny little violin can go back into the loft again, and that's the end of that for another 10 years. Yeah, tiny violins for Ben, I guess. Now you might think, of course Ben number 2 can't play the violin. He's a total beginner. He never really learned to play as a child anyway. So of course he sounds like rubbish. What does he expect? He should get some proper lessons and get on with it, right? Right then. So now let's ask the question. When did you last do art? And did you ever actually get a proper art lesson where you actually learnt to draw and you actually learnt to see the world like an artist sees it? Now, of course, you're going to say to me, "Yeah, but some people are super talented and they can just do that." Well, no. Some people are very talented. I guess it's not talent, I would call it aptitude. Some people have some of the skills inbuilt into them from when they were young about how to sort of see the world in a certain way. They're able to look at something over there and go, "Oh, it looks like this." They've got either the hand-eye coordination or the ability to see things as a whole, a kind of very good visual mind. Whatever it is, yeah, sure, some people have that. Many people don't. And for every single person, whether they've got these aptitudes or not, what it actually takes is some decent lessons and lots of practice. The other question I want to ask you is, do you have a violin is for losers story in your past perhaps? Because I've heard so many stories in my in-person and online art classes and here on YouTube in my previous videos about bad art teachers and people losing confidence and all of these terrible things from people's pasts that caused them to put down that paintbrush or pencil and not pick it up again for many years until much later in their adult lives when they decide, actually, yeah, I would have liked to have done that, actually, from when I was young. Now, what was it that put me off? So think about that. How much drawing have you actually been doing? Have you been taught how to draw? And do you have any stories in your past where someone or something has happened where you've been compared to somebody else or called out on a lack of perceived skill? I'm now going to identify the problem for you, and that's where these two books come in. Now, this book here by Betty Edwards, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, is quite an old book, and some of the neuroscience that's talked about in here is kind of outdated, but that's not to say that what is in here isn't valuable, and there's some really important stuff in here that I'd really love to share with you today. So let's have a little look. Okay, I'm reading from page 68 here. The majority of adults in the Western world do not progress in art skills much beyond the level of development they reached at age 9 or 10. The development of drawing skills seems to halt unaccountably at an early age for most people. Many adults have related to me painfully clear memories of someone ridiculing their attempts at drawing, and sadly, children often blame the drawing for causing the hurt rather than blaming the careless critic. As I said before, I've had so many of these stories, I can't even tell you, so many stories of people who think that they failed at art because they can't draw or they're talentless or their art teacher said one thing or another. And something that all of these people have in common, what has happened is they've internalized and blamed themselves or the artistic practice for something that is really someone else's problem. And that someone else, that problem is someone else's lack of ability as a teacher. Now let's think about that. We have developed our skills just like Ben up until a point where someone said something or something got in the way, or we were told that we needed to be productive now and go and get a proper job, or whatever happened. We developed our skills up until that point, then we stopped developing them. And of course, what happens then is you are stuck at the skill level that you had when you stopped. And that is why our drawings sometimes look very childish, because we're still drawing like a child, just like Ben is still playing his tiny little violin and has never progressed beyond making scratchy noises. And this is where changing our minds comes in. And this is where I'll introduce this second book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by Shunryu Suzuki. And I love this book. I live with this book on my bedstand. I read it regularly, but I'm usually reading it from a Buddhist practitioner's perspective rather than kind of what I'm talking about now and referencing it for. But there's something in the very beginning of this book that I think is really important and really meaningful for beginner artists or returning artists like you. Now, in Zen Buddhism, many forms of Buddhism, there is a concept where we are trying to keep our minds open and treat all experiences as if they are new experiences. Shunryu Suzuki says, in Japan, we have the phrase shoshin, which means beginner's mind. And the goal of the practice is to keep our beginner's mind. If your mind is empty, it's always ready for anything. It's open to anything. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. Now, I want us to really think about that for just a moment. We so rarely see a beginner being uplifted as being in the best state that you can be in. And I really want us to feel that being a beginner is great. It's wonderful. It's part of a process. It's exciting. In the beginner's mind, there is no thought, I have attained something, All self-centered thoughts limit our vast mind. When we have no thought of achievement, no thought of self, we are true beginners. Then we can really learn something. So what he's saying here is that you can't fill a cup that is already full. There is a Zen story about a teacher continually filling a cup with tea until it overflows and overflows, and telling the student that your mind is this cup. It's already full. You can't put more teachings into an already full mind. Now, what is that mind full of? Think about it in your case and think about it in Ben's case. Poor Ben, who just wants to learn to play the violin without people being mean about the horrible sounds he's making. It's full of judgment, it's full of self-criticism, it's full of ideas about where we should already be in our practices, of whatever our practice is, and that is where the issue is. Our minds are already full of all of these ideas that culture and the world that we live in has put into our brains, and that means that it's very, very hard to just sit down and learn to draw without feeling, oh, that's not good enough, it should be better, why haven't I figured this out by now? So being a beginner, it's more than just being new to something. It is a whole philosophy of embracing and enjoying the learning curve, the process of learning something. Think about how often you use the word should at yourself, right? I should be better, I should have practiced more, my drawing should be better, I should have done more lessons, I should have learnt when I was younger, whatever. Now there's one more thing in this book that I want to say to you before we finish. The beginner's mind is full of compassion. When our mind is compassionate, it is boundless. Compassion fills the space where the judgments were. And then when we're being compassionate to ourselves and to others, then we can really learn. Okay, so now you may be thinking, yeah, it's easy for you to say, I've seen your art and it's really nice. But when you make a comparison between yourself and me, or yourself and some other artists that you really like, you are setting up that difference between us, and you're also putting yourself down, essentially, because you're making a comparison between this version of Ben and this version of Ben. Ben who plays in a community orchestra versus Ben who stopped playing. And that is really the difference here. I didn't stop. I learnt as a child, I kept on going right up till art school, and then I had my critic moment, and I've made another video about it. I'll put it here. You can go and find that one. I've spoken about this stuff before. I only gave up for 5 years. So I did give up. I did have my crisis of confidence, but I came back. And I also stopped much, much later. So unlike little Ben, I didn't stop when I was 10. I stopped when I was, let's say 19, I think, 18, 19. So I had already got past the stage where a lot of those art skills had already developed. So I have just had a head start. And also, since I turned professional, I've been drawing day in, day out, learning new mediums, learning new skills, and also teaching. And there's nothing like teaching for learning. I have learnt so much by teaching all of you. That is the only difference. I kept going, and you are still in an earlier stage. Now, what we've got to do is embrace the beginner's mind, change your mind, be happy with where you are, and just enjoy the process. I practice the beginner's mind in loads of other areas. You know, it's not my art is my job, but I have hobbies, I have new skills that I'm always trying to develop. One of them is business skills, actually, where I am a total beginner, and I have to embrace the fact that I'm just not there yet. I don't have those skills yet, but isn't it fun to learn them? So I think that's about it really for today. There's your decision. I hope that you'll put that baggage aside and start being kind to yourself about where you are in your art journey. The beginner's mind is a wonderful thing. You can embrace that concept and that philosophy and take it forward with you, whether you're learning to draw or whether you're learning to do anything else. How do you feel about that? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on what I've talked about today. This is something that's really close to my heart, and I've been meaning to make a video about this for a very long time. I teach a lot of people in person, I teach online, I teach one-to-one, I teach groups, all sorts. And I hear the same things come up over and over and over again. And I just want to reassure you that this is all completely normal. And if you're going to blame anyone, blame the system that we're all sitting in. Don't blame yourself for where you are in your art journey. If you would like some lessons, I have a website called Nature Journaling Circle. I am currently working on a 10-week transformational nature journaling program that is going to be coming out at the end of the year. If you want to hear first about that, make sure you're signed up to my mailing list, which I will link in the description. You will be the first to hear about it. So if you want a bit of hand-holding while you go through this beginner's journey, that's where you can find it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you next time.